really drawn, and I think what I'm drawn to about her and about all these people that I'm going to talk about is just their timeless sensibilities and their individual sensibilities and who they are. Um, these people that I admire, I've liked since I was a child, and nothing's really changed over the years. So it's kind of fun to share more about them, not only in this setting but throughout social media. Like a few people that are like have been big influences on myself and my career over the years have been Bill Blass, Givenchy, and Oscar de la Renta. And the funny thing about these three gentlemen is that they're all fashion designers, but they have these spectacular homes. So I guess this is kind of where my two worlds collide, the fashion and the interiors. But I just admire their sensibilities and their style and their stories and their elegance. A few other people, Bunny Mellon's been a huge influence. This is Oscar de la Renta's home in Punta Cana, which I was able to visit one time about 4 or 5 years ago, which is amazing. He's been a huge inspiration to my interior design work. This is Givenchy's home outside of Paris, Le Jonchette. This is the interiors of the home. You can see there's wicker sprinkled throughout, lots of books. A lot of the things that we'll talk later on about some of my design formulas, you can see in this image. And this is one of my favorite homes of all time. It's been a huge inspiration. It's La Fiorentina, which is in the south of France, which has been great inspiration for a particular project that we'll talk a little bit later about.
Mm-hmm. So I see in these few short years, people have started to recognize your signature style and the way you've incorporated blue and white, indoor outdoor living, beautiful mix of antiques. I know the people inspired you, but what about these elements make them classic and I know you use them in regardless the style of the house, whether you're doing traditional, you're doing modern, you're doing mid-century, you use the same elements. What is it about them that makes them so timeless and appropriate anywhere?
Well, I think for those who have the old book, and hopefully those have the new book, you start seeing threads in our design work. And there are some, I hate to use the word signatures or formulas because it sounds a little bit egotistical, but there are these different things that I find that work in all of our projects and in all of the different styles of homes that we do. Many of these things are just things that, again, when we're talking about the iconic people that you see in, some of their work that I have long admired, that I just know work, but some of the things which, we use over and over again are blue and white. From an accessory standpoint, we love books, we love boxes and bowls. Our design aesthetic and who we are is really defined by this indoor-outdoor lifestyle. Maybe it's because we're in California, but this connection between living inside and living outside and how they inspire and influence each other. We use a lot of wicker in our projects. We use a lot of striped duries, chinoiserie trim, baskets, hurricanes, natural fiber rugs, and antiques. These are just things, like I said, that, when we're doing projects, we, rely on over and over again. And when we get into the different styles of the homes that we work on, you'll see how we use these, but then how they kind of are translated differently depending on the style of the house.
Beautiful. You have more, so let's talk about process. We have an audience of interior designers, and I think they're all going to be interested in hearing how you work with your clients, what your process is like, and your presentation. I think you've prepared some really elaborate and informative slides here. So,
well, our design process, truly, obviously the clients reached out to us for a reason. So, they're drawn to our work, to our story, to our brand. And they want somehow to, have that be a part of their lives. And, our process is initially, we ask a lot of questions. We really find out what the client loves and what they, you know, want their home to feel like and be, and what are the personal things in their life that are important to them, to really kind of find how to marriage their lives with our work. But, you know, with all projects, we start with the architectural plans and the floor plans, and that's what this kind of slide shows. And this is the project that actually is in the new Veranda magazine. That's also in the introduction chapter of our new book that kind of lays out a little bit about our process. But you'll see here is the elevations of the house. One of the first things that we start with after we work with the architect or contractor on any modifications to the house is we do a furniture floor plan. And this is, I think, you know, the foundation of a home, and, you know, how rooms really should function and be utilized. This is also when we, you know, start thinking about how we're going to incorporate some of their existing things, and then really start thinking about all the new pieces of furniture and the new items that we'll be able to have for the house. We're a little old school. We have color and fabric meetings with the client initially to really come up with what the overall story and concept of the house is. But then for each individual room, in conjunction with the floor plans, we do mood boards. So they're very tactile. There's real fabrics on them. There's real trims on them. There's inspiration pictures. It's a really great way of showing the client exactly how the house is going to feel. And here's an example of the breakfast room and the mood board. And here's the end result of how the breakfast room turned out. So I'm going to go backwards so you can kind of see the images in the mood board, the fabrics that we use, the inspiration pictures, and the floor plan. And then when you really see how the room turned out, you can see how all that translates beautifully and executes flawlessly.
While we're looking at this, Mark, before you go through your next few slides, the audience is very interested in hearing about, you know, the process of your product design. And it seems to me that as you're doing these houses and you can't find exactly what you want, I have a feeling you were inspired to create some of your own things. So as we go along, if you mention to the group a little bit about the creation of your fabric, your rugs, your furniture, and kind of how that weaves into, you know, a project that you're working on with a client.
Well, I mean, I think in general, you know, in regards to product design, you know, what inspires a particular product or design is really trying to create something that's not out there, or something that we're always looking for that we can't find. That's one. Another is reinterpreting beautiful antiques or things that we've customized in the past that just kind of work. But I think also with our product design, you know, we're very fortunate to be able to work on not only furniture, but lighting, fabrics, tabletop. But what I'm so proud about with our products is that if, you know, you could look at them all separately and really truly see the story that we're trying to achieve. But when you put them all together, they all work together. And I think that's a key component of kind of like our brand and who we are, is how like all the puzzles kind of work together to a bigger, broader, beautiful message. But ultimately, we're trying to just create products that are unique, that are differentiated, and that are really useful, and that, you know, we can't really find in the marketplace. Because as you guys know, you know, there's so many things in the marketplace, but believe it or not, there are things that are wonderful that aren't out there yet.
We were asked of all the products you're designing, which ones were the most challenging? What looked simple but wasn't?
Well, I think lighting is a complicated one, just because there's so many technical things that are, you know, technical aspects, you know, to lighting that aren't just really aesthetics around the functional piece. I think the most, you know, interesting thing in all the product collaborations we've had is, you know, I'm super organized in the way I approach my work, you know, and how we strategize things because of my background. So kind of just coming up with that when you're partnering people like that, communicate how you're going to communicate, how you're going to follow up, how you're going to share information, you know, is always interesting because you're working with different people every time. So it's a growing experience to kind of like collaborate with different people and see how different people work. But I think if you're, you know, the most difficult product, I think, has probably been lighting, not because of the technicalities and the scale. Just real quickly, so I want to go back to the mood board. So this is the mood board for the dining room of that particular project, which you see the floor plan on the left, and then you see the fabrics and some of the pieces. And then here's what the dining room looks like now. And you can kind of again see how, how the mood boards and the furniture floor plans translate into the actual end result.
That's gorgeous. Amazing. How involved is the client in, every step of the decision, or does it depend on the client?
Well, this particular project that we're looking at is the third house I've done for this client. So I did their home in Montecito, I did their home in Malibu, and this is their home in Pacific Palisades. And every client's different, their involvement level, whether they want to really be involved with every detail, or do they really just want to kind of, build a story together and then let us execute. This particular client, of course, I have a very close relationship with, and over the years have become very aware of what she loves and doesn't love. But, this particular project, she completely trusted me on, past the mood boards, and we just kind of executed. So, it just all depends. And we're open to any kind of collaboration with a client, whether they want to be really involved or they don't want to be involved. Ultimately, we just want to get to an end result where the house and the all the interiors and everything in the home reflects who they are. That's the most important thing. This is a mood board for the living room and the floor plan, and then this is what the living room looked like when it was complete. And here's a little bit of a grid showing, even though you have all these individual rooms with individual floor plans and individual mood boards, how, when you put it all together, how beautiful it all looks, the story that it tells. And that's our jobs as decorators, is to orchestrate this story. And this is a great representation of the overall feeling of this house.
Beautiful. I think we're moving on to get a glimpse of the new book.
Here it is.
So, Mark, in this book, what's very exciting is all the new beautiful projects and these signature elements that show up in you've divided it by style, traditional, coastal, country. It's really amazing how they all feel very different. So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about, each of these styles. And specifically, I know we're starting with traditional. If you go to the next slide, we're in the traditional area, I think. And the big question, and I think this audience was very curious, designers have asked how you convince young families that classic style is the way to go when so many people are obsessed with mid-century design today.
Well, I think people are drawn to our work for a reason. And I think that I feel like clients, and by the way, we have a lot of young clients now, which I'm very proud of. We have several projects that we're working on right now where the clients are in their 30s and early 40s, which to me is a testament to the fact that, younger people also want timeless interiors. I think it's an investment as well. I think when you're really investing in your lifelong home and the place you're going to raise your children and spend your time, I think that people really want something that's going to look great, in 20 or 30 years, and I think that's a key aspect of our design work. We always say that we want our interiors and our rooms to not only look good today, but they would have looked good 30 years ago and they'll look good 30 years from now. So I think when you think about that, you really have to think about, what trends mean to you, and, what does timeless style really mean to you? And I think we do a really beautiful job of kind of the mix, kind of incorporating modern elements, current elements with kind of more traditional elements. So,
can you point out to us while you walk us through this house, there's something very youthful about it, although it is very traditional and has plenty of antiques. Will you point out the things that kind of make it more modern or youthful, or not? It's certainly not granny at all.
Yeah, well, this is the living room of the house, and I think that there's, it definitely has this kind of timeless, traditional Southern feeling to it. but I think when you look at this living room right now here, you can obviously see the traditional elements, but there's also like kind of a fresh, optimistic, youthful perspective to it. And I think when when we look at this, I think it's the natural fiber rug, which looks like a painted floor, adds kind of a whimsical element. The big, large, functional ottoman in the middle of the space with a little bit of more of a modern lines, I think, is another element. I also think what you can't really see in this picture is there's a huge over the sofa. There's a big modern abstract piece of art, which I think also adds, kind of a dose of modernity to this more traditional environment. Another thing is that this client had this amazing rose medallion porcelain collection that we sprinkled throughout the entryway, the living room, and the dining room. And there's really kind of interesting ways of how we highlighted that collection. And you can kind of see in these pictures, how we put it on the walls, the plates with the brackets. But again, just that white plaster bracket on that yellow wall, there's something about it that feels fresh and modern. And, furthermore, not to get too granular, but, all the fabrics are mostly linen and cotton. And there's even some kind of from Portugal, these like little icots that are in cotton. You see the little striped ecot that's on the middle of the blue sofa there at the top. Those elements, the fabric combinations, I think feel modern and fresh and do not feel old or stuffy at all.
And here's the antique, and also looks very youthful, and the use of the clay pots and the cool light fixture. It's
really this is Gracie wallpaper. The client wanted Gracie, and I think that we didn't want the dining room to feel too formal. So this particular antique on the wall was her grandmother's. So we incorporated like her, her existing antiques with this amazing paper. But I think we brought it down a notch. I think it's maybe just kind of the mix of like the potted plants and her dish collection. Like you said, that the lantern feels modern with little star cutouts. Here's a little bit another view more of the dining room. I think that the bold yellow window treatment fabric, which is the really great blue and yellow trim, there's something about that feels modern. Again, the natural fiber rug on the floor kind of brings it down a little bit. But I don't think anyone would look at these images and think this looks, very granny or too old school. There is something about it that feels youthful and fresh. And I guess you could use the word modern for a traditional home.
Yeah,
there's a freshness to it.
Very.
And
this.
Yeah,
this is wicker. You love wicker. I want to hear about that.
I do love wicker, and I think I just love the texture of wicker, and there is something about it that feels super old school. But I think this is the sunroom, and I think this is a wonderful example of, how, a fresh modern take on traditional. And I think here you're it's about the painted floors and the Parsons style game table that's upholstered in a sister parish fabric. Again, just like the living room, I think that there's traditional aspects to this, but with the modern art, the cleaner lines, the painted floor, there's something about this that feels modern and youthful and current. I think it feels like a current, an updated traditional look.
Absolutely beautiful. So let's move into coastal. And I'd love for you to point out, because I was very curious about why this looks so modern and what you do with the textures and kind of how it's just a completely different vibe here.
Well, I mean, I think when I think of coastal, when we're working in homes, on the water, or we're working in homes where people want to have that coastal feel, the things that naturally come to mind are, natural fibers and wicker and bamboo and flaxy nubby neutrals mixed in with like, blue and white, i.e. stripes. This particular project that, is in Malibu, the palette, and the sensibilities came from the textures of the beach outside. So, the graininess of the sand and the serenity and the kind of spiritual aspect of the blues outside at the beach. And just we wanted to bring that into the house. And naturally, when you're working on a coastal project or a beach project, you want to have this more casual sensibility where you can come in and out, in and out of the, outside and in and out of the water. And it just feel like a natural transition. So, there's a casualness to it that I think is evocative in, these particular pictures of this project.
As we go through this project, I notice, yeah, I wanted to ask you how involved you were in the architecture, because was this brick white, or did you, how involved did you get in, let's say, renovation of the home?
Well, we're always really involved, whether we're leading the renovation or whether we're working with an architect and a contractor. But yeah, we're very involved. So this particular house was built in the 80s. So there was no significance to the architecture whatsoever. But we didn't really want to, rip the house apart. It's, so, we did little fresh things like just paint everything, and we painted the brick that was on the fireplace and added a little cushion that went across it for it to be a little bit more seating. We did, you could see in this picture down here at the bottom, we did, add beams to the ceiling that are kind of more of a weathered, kind of distressed wood, but also in white. So, just some, white paint and some texture and some, wonderful furnishings really made this space feel completely updated and modern. But we are very involved in all aspects of the project. This project, we really led all the architectural changes and just worked directly with the contractor versus having an official architect involved in the project.
I also want to mention, this is very interesting, little backstory. In your first book, you had, we had sections of the book that were so many variations of blue, from the denim to the, range, and I see you using all of these together in this room, and they all work together. It's very interesting that, the way the fabrics range. And then this next picture, you've gone into kind of a whole different thing.
Yeah, well, we really wanted, the downstairs of the house, this is the upstairs. The downstairs is more saturated and a little bit more casual. And then as you went up to the master and to the additional bedrooms upstairs, the blues and the neutrals shift to a little bit more of a serene kind of soft sensibility. And, I was inspired by the sea foam of the water for the palette of the master bedroom. That's what you directly look down to from the balcony, is the ocean. And, that's kind of what we wanted the client, or the client wanted the room to feel like. And I think we accomplished it with the color palette and the softness. But there's also in this particular, throughout this whole house, there's a lot of texture, in the cerused oaks and the woven materials. So you get that little bit of that feeling of what the sand is like as well, mixed in with the soft blues. And here's a grid, excuse me, kind of showing some details in the master bedroom where you really get that. I think you can tell that this is inspired by the water and inspired by the natural aspects of the ocean.
Got it. There is a question coming in that would be appropriate to answer right now, where somebody asked, everything's blue. How do you find so many clients who like blue? And I was just going to comment, because when we first started working together on this book, I was like, Mark, can you really do a book where everything is blue? And then we looked at 500 pictures and we're like, yes, we really can, because it's all so different. But yeah, what do you do when you have a client that says, well, I don't love blue?
Well, that happens a lot, actually, to be honest with you. So, we are a brand, and a part of our brand DNA is a traditional timeless aesthetic, but a part of that is this love of blue, which plays out over social media. But, we do all colors, and we love all colors. And, it just so happens that most of the things that are editorialized or discussed are blue, but by no means is that all we do. So this is that same Malibu home, which you can see there's a neutral.
Yeah, I was ready to say there's no blue here.
There's a neutral point of view. And there's not, I would say blue makes up probably 30% of our projects, to be, factual and the truth. So you'll see more of a range. But I do love blue. And I think if you're going to be known for something, there's nothing wrong to be known for blue. But, we like to do many other things, and we do many other things Here's the landing of this particular house. Here are some detail shots that are also sprinkled throughout the Malibu project that are neutral and textural. And, my first, at the beginning of my career, I was really known for neutral, to be honest with you, 10 years ago. And blue was an accent. So we're very comfortable with a neutral palette and love a neutral palette.
Well, so blue is great on the coast and you're in California. But here we are. Let's talk a little bit about clearly the environment you work in inspires you. And here you are out in the country. How influenced by environment are you? And what do you do when you're doing a New York City apartment?
Well, I think the biggest source of inspiration in all of our project is the environment and what's right outside the door. And that is one of the things that we look to, or I look to immediately. And I am more than ever, I mean, especially with the times we're living in right now, nature has become, the greatest source of inspiration. And it really always has been, but, I'm more mindful of it now than I ever have been before. And, just when you look outside, no matter where you are and what type of demographics or part of the country you are, that beauty that's outside, I always look to be inspiration for our interiors. So I do think the country chapter in our book is a great representation of this. We have two projects that are featured in this chapter. One is this project in Napa, which is a little bit of a grid here. And it's set on a winery, and there's all these beautiful, you think about a winery, you think about all the different shades of green, and you think about the aubergines and the lilacs and the berry colors, and you also have the blue sky in the mix. So we really wanted to bring that palette into this Napa project, and it's also kind of has a modern farmhouse sensibility to the house. So in this particular picture here, you can see the wineries right outside, or the wine vineyards right outside the glass bronze doors. And now you look at the interiors and you really can kind of really visualize what you're seeing outside. And it's all the pretty greens and the neutrals and the berries. And there's, the wineries too, there's a point in the vineyards where they become more golden. And the color of the gold and the natural color of the woods that are in this house kind of really bring that palette in the house. So, long story short, we always look to nature to inspire our interiors. And I think this is a good representation of that color palette and that sensibility in Napa. Here are some other detail shots of this particular project. And you see there's a little bit of blue, but I wouldn't look at this and I would not necessarily think the dominant color palette of this house is blue. This is the outdoor entertainment room at the house in Napa. Again, it has this modern feel, but the doors completely open up and you're looking at all the vineyards. And I think that it just feels really, relaxed and comfortable and beautiful, just like what you would think a winery would be like. Here are some additional details of the space. We had fun with these two. These are the boys and girls room that are joined by Jack and Jill. So what we did here is we took that kind of palette that you see in the main part of the house, the greens and the lilacs and the blues, and really kind of saturated it and really kind of made it more fun with these two rooms. Here are some details.
I love these curtains. You have to tell me about this. It's wild, really very youthful, high energy. Well,
this is the kids, the media room / rec room. This client had a really amazing art collection that really kind of helped guide several of the rooms in the house. But we really just wanted to create something really fun and youthful again, and functional. Hence the painted floors and the built-in book cabinets, with all the books and the TV and the games. This is just a really, really wonderful space. Here's another angle of the other end where the game table is. That's a Rushka piece of art that's there on the wall by the ottoman poofs next to the straight drapery. So we were really just wanted it to like feel fun and fresh, and again be inspired by what's outside, which you can kind of see in the textiles on the sofa. That close-up picture, really you get a sense of what's happening organically outside the greens. And that's
So
really,
young, so fun, so high energy, really fantastic.
and truly inspired by nature, which I
Yeah.
think is the most important thing to point out.
So, Mark, moving on to Mediterranean, it feels like it would be a departure for you, although it's so California and it's a little bit more exotic. And, it definitely takes you into a different palette. But talk a little bit about, because this feels more, focused on craftsmanship and textiles and ceramics, and that's kind of the vibe here that I think inspired you. Tell us about that a bit.
Well, I think probably my favorite style of home is the Mediterranean. I love it. I love plaster walls. I love terracotta. I love blue and white Portuguese tiles. I love Anglo-Indian antiques. I love all those things mixed with the signatures, i.e., baskets, natural fiber furniture, natural fiber rugs, wicker furniture. Um, I love this particular style of home, and we do a lot of these types of homes. You see a lot of these homes in Montecito here in Los Angeles. It's just a style of the house that I'm really comfortable with. I'm actually comfortable with all styles, but this is one that I really truly enjoy. And I do think it, has this kind of exoticism to it, and this sense of travel and sense of worldliness that I think is really, really fun. I also think they're really easy homes to decorate because you don't really have to have lots of different things throughout the house. You really have these common threads with finishes that carry throughout. It's, usually everything's bronze, and there's usually plaster walls and everything. So there's like less, wall treatments and different things like that. So there is this kind of like common language that these homes feel best when there's, like a common language continuing throughout the house. But this is a style of home I'm super fond of. And here's just a great example of another indoor-outdoor space. This is the Moroccan garden. This is all open and then the glass doors that go into the vestibule. You'll see there's this wonderful mix of antiques and found pieces. And we are known for blue and white. There is blue and white on the walls in this particular Moroccan garden, but it's more of like an Iznik type of blue and white versus Chinese blue and white. This is the entryway to this project in Montecito. Really large, vast space, terracotta tiles, antique terracotta tiles, blue and white Portuguese tiles on the wall. On that back wall, as you would think that was a tapestry, but it's not. It's a wallpaper panel that from Excel that we designed that kind of dictated the color palette of the house. Speaking of the color palette of the house, this is the great room for this house. Again, I think, I love this house. I love all of our work because I think there's something about it that feels traditional and timeless, but there's something modern too that feels young and fresh. And I think you can really see that in the furnishings and the mix of finishes and the mix of textiles. And of course, I'm a big fan of modern art. I love modern art in all of our homes. And this home has a great collection of art.
Tell us a bit about this client. Young, old, family?
This client's the wife is in her 30s, so they're young, or she's young, and he's a little bit older. But I think like all of our clients, they come to us. They want a place that's going to be not only beautiful, but it's going to be a place where they can, love it 30 years from now. These are forever homes, and they all really want a mix of things, a mix of old, a mix of new, a mix of high, a mix of low, a mix of solid, a mix of print. I think that's truly what people are drawn to for us. And then, when they come to us, that's what we accomplish.
Beautiful. Incredible kitchen.
Yeah, that's the kitchen, and then this is the library, some details in the library. That floor we had flown in. It was an antique floor from Italy. Wow. That we brought in, and then.
I was going to ask you about the antique pieces, the floor, the mantle, some of the furniture, lighting. Are you shopping for all of that in your downtime?
Well, I mean, all that kind of stuff is picked out during the architectural phase, where you're collaborating with, architects and, different people on the finishes, the mantles and the textures and throughout the house. We always in our, I should have mentioned this probably when we were talking about our design process. We always, when we do our furniture floor plans or our concepting, we leave, openings for antiques. We like to shop and collect antiques throughout the duration of the project. I've always found that if you're actually going out and shopping for a specific thing, you never find it, but you'll always find like 5 or 10 things that could work in other projects. So we're always kind of like, looking and shopping and, having dialogue with our client along the way of different things that we found. But we have a plan. We always make sure that we have openings and space for antiques, and we really try to fill the major pieces throughout the project. And at the end of the installation is when we layer in all the accessories and some of the more special, smaller pieces.
Minimalist here a little bit. We got it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good representation of our range of work. I think, we just had the conversation around blue and white, or maybe being more uber traditional. I think this is a great example of, we do understand minimalism and love it and love restraint. But again, I think you look at this and there's lots of layers and there's lots of textures. There's a timelessness to it. Do you know that I think this, all of these pictures, everything will look good here in 20 years. But there is a mix of things.
One of the questions that just came in is, what is your lead time for a complete home design renovation?
Well, it just ranges, ground up is around 3 years, 2 to 3 years. A renovation can be anywhere from, 12 months to, 18 months. It just all depends. It also depends on, the team and, really what the client's deadline is. I think that's the most important thing. We always work backwards. We always start with when do you want to be in the house? And, then we can set realistic expectations of what's doable or not. But there's a range. It just depends on the, the true aspects of the project.
So a big question that came early on before our panel today was, what was the project that kind of propelled your success? And I know you're about to give us a tour of your house. I know it was nationally published over maybe almost 10 years ago, 9 years ago. Was this the start of it all?
Yeah, well, my home being published for the very first time in House Beautiful in December 2011, January 2012 issue, and being on the cover was really what launched our interior design business. I had never had a desire or an inkling that I would become a decorator. Again, I had been in retail for many, many years. Around the same time that our house got published in House Beautiful, I had started a blog there around the same time that became very quickly a go-to for style aesthetics and interior decorators. That's when blogs were really big, and I started a blog that was really basically inspired on what, the things that I love: chic people, glamorous places, and stylish things. And that was the first, opportune time for people to know who I was. And it really was based around what inspired me, beautiful rooms and iconic people that I talk about all the time now on social media. And at the same time that our house got published, so when people saw the house, I'm sure they knew how to, they Googled me and they were able to be directed to the blog, which they were directed to my contact information. And we just got so many people reaching out and wanted us to decorate their house. So that's how the business started. And it's kind of unbelievable to think about that was just 9 years ago. But it's been.
Yes, I remember seeing your house years ago, and the new pictures, it's been an evolution as well.
Yeah, I mean, the house was first published in House Beautiful, and that was an iteration. And then it was published 4 years later in Veranda. And, and then most recently in Architectural Digest and in this new book is the last chapter is all around the kind of the latest iteration. But I think what people need to realize around the last 10 years of my own personal home has been an evolution of how we live in our house and how we function in our house, and what we wanted our house to be like, because our lives have changed in the last 10 years. And this, but if you look really closely, a lot of the main pieces, the key antiques, things just have moved around, moved around to different parts of the house, been recovered, which has been kind of fun. So these Coromandel screens that were done by Gracie, which were inspired by, or were actually the real original design that Dita Blair had in her home in Washington, D.C. I had loved them for many years, or for a long time, loving Dita's style, and Billy Baldwin had done those originally in her first house in DC. I wanted to recreate those. So these screens that are now in the dining room had previously, in the veranda iteration, had been in the living room. So it's just a kind of a testament of like, surrounding yourself with things you love, and how it doesn't matter if your style is evolving or changing, or your house is changing, or that these things still work, or they should work, things that you personally love. So I think that I love this grid of pictures because it kind of just, is a mixed things of collections and, things that I personally love, and to me make a home.
The questions that are coming in right now, maybe you could incorporate them into your comments. One question is, you use task and portable lighting. Do you avoid using recessed lighting?
Well, I think, it depends on the project and the house, but, if we're doing ground up construction, we do add in recessed lights in places, it's appropriate, whether it's, showers, or whether it's corner lighting in main rooms. I mean, I prefer decorative lighting, but I do think recessed functional lighting has a purpose and is needed to light spaces that would not be lit without decorative fixtures. So I think it's a balance. I do not believe in overlighting with functional lighting by any means. I'm that decorator who's always like, oh, we only need 4 can lights here versus 20. So I think it's a balance.
The other question that's come in is, do you work with an art collector, art advisors, or do you advise clients, or do they have their own collections?
It's all of the above. So many projects we work on, we help curate the art. Some of our more established clients who have a passion for art already have, a curator or someone that they might have already worked with, that we continue to work with. There are a lot of clients that we work with finding a great curator of art to help us with the process. So it's, it's all three, it just depends on the project. But, art is a very personal thing, and it's a very subjective thing. I can influence as much as possible, but the most important thing about art is for the people that, love art to like buy the art they're passionate about. And it's my job to make sure it works in the environments that we are creating with them.
We've got a question that just came in about, will you reveal some lesser known sources for fabric and wallpaper, not the obvious ones?
Well, that's a tough question. So I don't know what lesser known means.
Well, not Cowton or, Schumacher, other.
There's a lot of smaller fabric brands and wallpaper brands that we love. Like we love Namaste. We love Guy Goodfellow. We love, even though Robert Keim is a big name, I don't know if people realize that he has like these gorgeous fabrics and textiles. So, we love to mix the tried and true classics that you see at Brunswick and Fee and Cowton and Schumacher. We love to mix in like, less known brands into the mix to kind of give it that kind of evolved sensibility.
Since we're outside, a question came in to ask if you work with landscape architects when you design outdoor spaces.
Absolutely. I mean, I always advise clients to get landscape designers or in the mix, because I think that they are the experts in the terrain and what will live and not live, and not thrive in different locations. So I think that's a really key thing. I mean, I'm drawn to a certain look. This is my personal garden, so I'm really drawn to a lush green look, which is incorporates boxwoods and ficus and ivies and different things like that. But that doesn't work everywhere. So yes, I strongly advise, and we enjoy working with many of the best landscape designers in America.
Another question that came in is, do you give clients a choice of combo A or B, or is it a full and complete presentation?
Well, we do a full and complete presentation, but throughout the presentation, we do present options. So we might present, for example, living room, we might present like 3 different sofa options that they can choose from the silhouette. But I think we do a really fantastic job of it's a long creative process. Before we even get to the creative presentation with the mood boards, we've had several meetings with them to kind of first get from them their inspiration and what they really want their home to feel like. And then we have color and fabric meetings where we align on a palette of the house and key signature fabrics before we even get to the final presentation. So we kind of bring them along with us. And throughout the whole process, there's options for sure.
And another question was, what year was the red Kips Bay, New York City room of yours? Somebody must remember that.
That was in 2014, I believe. I've done 3 Kips Bay show houses. The first I did was the Red Dining Room in New York. And then we did 3 years later, we did a bedroom in the New York show house. And then just recently, we did the Kips Bay inaugural house in Dallas, actually just last month. So,
actually, we have to start wrapping up. So could we get to that wonderful Kips Bay and share that? That's good timing.
Yeah, so we were really excited to be included at the first inaugural Kips Bay show house in Dallas. I was born in Texas, and I have a strong connection with the South, and it was really exciting to be a part of that house that opened up a month ago, and actually we just took down on Monday. But I got to say, the room is probably one of my favorite rooms I've ever decorated. And I think the reason is because it really just goes back to the soul of who I am and what I love. And this room was inspired by La Fiorentina, that fabulous house in the south of France that I mentioned earlier. That was, over the years, Billy Baldwin played a role in it, Givenchy played a role in it, Bunny Mellon played a role in it, David Hicks played a role in it, Rory Cameron, who's this kind of lesser known designer, worked on it in the 40s. So it has this wonderful story. And I wanted to kind of reinterpret that sensibility in more of a Dallas way in the living room. So that's kind of what you see here in this picture. It is an ode to really what I love. And it's glamorous, and it's, somewhat over the top, but all the fabrics are cotton and linen. There's also a really amazing casualness to it too, that I think is great. And, it's full of antiques. In addition to a lot of most of the furniture pieces are from my collection with Chaddock.
Spectacular. I know Terry's letting me know that we need to wrap it up for the book giveaway, but I think one question that came in before that people want to know is, how do you protect your brand? How do you maintain control over, over the brand and kind of the essence of
the brand started out with authenticity, and it is, and it has always been just based around what I love, like what I'm personally passionate about. I have never been or never will be the type of person that, follows a trend or does a project or post something on Instagram that I think, people will like. I do it truly because I love it. So I think as protecting the brand, it's just really truly like authenticity. And I'm really involved in most aspects of everything we do. I have an amazing team. Over time, I'm trying to be less involved and really let them have complete ownership. But, we are tried and true who we are, and we'll never try to be anything other than that. And I think that probably has been the recipe for the success so rapidly, in conjunction with a lot of hard work. I mean, what we do is not easy. And as all of you all that are decorators, you know that. But when you do what you love in your job is to create beauty, and personally, if that's what you're passionate about, which I am, I think it resonates, and I think that that's the most
Well, I
important.
know how hard you work, and I know one of the treats of the book are the 500 pictures that didn't get in the book that are used on the end sheets. I know how busy you are because I bump into you at the airport. But I'm going to have Terry take this because there's a book giveaway. And Terry, are you on? Hi, Terry.
I'm on.
Hi, Virginia.
Oh, I'm back. Okay. Can everyone see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're giving away actually 5 autographed books. So we're going to have Mark choose numbers from 1 through 28. And our admin, Teresa, will give us the name of that person. And then if you could please put your address in the chat, we'll make sure that that book is sent to you and you receive that. So Mark, if you could, your 5 favorite numbers from 1 through 28.
Okay, well, let's do the 13 because my dog Lily is going to be turning 13 on October 29th, which is in a couple of days. So let's do 13. Let's do 19 because my birthday falls on the 19th of a particular month. Let's do the 3 because we all know what's happening November 3rd, which is a big day. And just to make it easy, let's do number 1 and number 28, the first number and the last number.
28. Awesome.
So 1, 3, 13, 19, and 28.
Okay. So Teresa, are you able to put those names?
I will type them into the chat and send them out to everybody.
Okay. That's awesome. All right. And then for the final, we have an Annie Selke rug that we're also raffling off. So Mark, one more number for the final.
Let's do 14 because it's right between 1 and 28.
Okay. Lucky 14. Congratulations. And thank you. Thank you so much for those donations as well. That's awesome.
You're welcome.
And I'd like to thank you, Mark and Jill, so much. The presentation was wonderful. I learned a lot, and I love the way you present. Love your mood boards. It's amazing. And thank you to our gold sponsor, Sherwin-Williams. Thank you so much. And I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation, and we will see you again at our next book club in January.
All right. Thank you, everyone. It was really fun.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jill.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm out.